Bring to us your poetry from inspiration sought. Come join us with your images, your verses, words, and thought. From here, we'll share your balladry with those who do not know it. This platform's here for you to show the world that you're the poet.
Welcome to episode 23 of You're the Poet, the poetry podcast featuring you. I'm host Matt Burgio, and I'm here with co-host Phil Burgio. Phil, welcome.
Thank you.
Here at You're the Poet, our purpose is to share our love of poetry with the world and invite you to do the same. I want to start by saying thank you to all of our listeners who have made You're the Poet possible. We hope you enjoyed the podcast and the poetry that is shared here. For our featured guest for this episode of You're the Poet, we want to welcome back returning guest A. Benedict. Hey, Benedict, welcome back to You're the Poet.
Thank you so much, Matt, Phil. Great to be back with you guys, really.
Great to have you.
Yeah, we're glad you can join us and come back and share some more poetry with us and what you have going on, and we look forward to your contribution to the episode. To start things off, I'm going to turn it over to Phil to show our classic poem for the episode. Phil?
This poem was by Paul Laurence Dunbar. Paul Laurence Dunbar was a African-American poet born in Dayton, Ohio, which is about 30 miles north of where we are. He was born June 27th, 1872. He died February 9th, 1906 at the age of 33. He died of tuberculosis, which back then there was no cure. The doctor told him, well, drink whiskey to alleviate any pain and suffering you have, and thusly became alcoholic. Let's hear it for that 19th century medicine. His father and mother were both slaves before the Civil War. His father fought in the Civil War with the 55th Massachusetts. He was a high school friend of Orville Wright. There's a lot about Dunbar, and if you're really interested, go read his biography on Wikipedia. It's amazing. Amazing life, short life, but amazing life. A lot of his poems were in a pre-Civil War black dialect. I didn't pick one of those because I don't want to butcher the poem. So the one I have is a Christmas poem that he wrote. Okay, this poem's called Christmas in the Heart. The snow lies deep upon the ground, and winter's brightness all around. Decks bravely out the forest sere with jewels of the brave old year. The coasting crowd upon the hill with some new spirit seems to thrill, and all the temple bells that chime ring out the glee of Christmas time. In happy home the brown oak bough vies with the red-gemmed holly now, and here and there like pearls they show the berries of the mistletoe. A sprig upon the chandelier says to the maidens, come not here. Even the pauper of the earth some kindly gift has cheered to mirth. Within his chamber dim and cold there sits a grasping miser old. He has no thought save one of gain, to grind and gather and he grasp and drain. A peal of bells, a merry shout, assail his ears, he gazes out upon a world to him all gray, and snarls, why, this is Christmas Day. No man of ice for shame, for Christmas Day is no mere name. No, not for you this ringing cheer, this festal season of the year. And now for you the chimes and bells from holy temple rolls and swells. In day indeed he has no part, who holds not Christmas in his heart. Paul Laurence Dunbar.
Very nice.
Yeah, I've known about him for a long time. Well, being in this area and being in Dayton a lot, you kind of know about him.
Sure.
All right, thank you for sharing. I always like a Christmas poem, and I had to look at the dates because I was wondering when he talked about the old miser, if that was some throwback to Scrooge or if, where the inspiration came from.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Well, I mean, from which direction? Was this earlier or later? But this is obviously more contemporary.
Yeah, late 19th century, early 20th century.
Yeah.
What Dickens was early 19th century.
Right.
Yeah, kind of post-Victorian time, I guess.
Right, right.
The golden age almost started around right after this time when he died, I think.
Yeah. I'm not too familiar with Dunbar's poetry. I might have to look up some more of that.
Yeah.
He had a lot of good visualization in there, I thought. His visualization was great. Very antiquated in some ways, when you harken back, or people would harken back to the old days of Christmas. I thought some of his references there were really interesting. He touched on the fun, the mirth, and the beauty also. That's his visualization there was great.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on all that.
He was pretty prolific. He wrote novels, short stories, even wrote a libretto for an opera.
All right, from there, we're going to turn to my poem for the episode. I'm going to share a poem of mine called Snow Snakes. This was a poem that was inspired by just driving down the highway typically at night, but also during the day you see these when the snow is kind of swirling on the road and blowing in wisps, and it looks like snakes running across the street. And so this poem inspired that, and it kind of has a turn. It's a style of poem I've been working on where there's a part where it kind of reverses itself, and then the lines are similar as the rest of the poem ends out, kind of going backwards. And you will hear that in the poem. So this is called Snow Snakes. A drifting blur of ghostly white that's carried by a gentle breeze. They scurry on as if by fright and disappear with knowing ease. My car it cannot seem to seize these creatures crawling across the street. Avoiding that which can't be beat, they slither off into the trees. They disappear with knowing ease and scurry on as if by fright, all carried by a gentle breeze, a drifting blur of ghostly white. Matthew Burgio. And that's basically it. That's just the vision I get when I'm driving. Last night I was driving to work and the snow was coming down pretty heavy and the snow snakes were out in full force.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. I like that a lot, Matt. There was really good pacing to it. The rhyming was excellent with that as well. And what a unique topic, because I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I think a lot of people that live in cold climates would.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. All right. From there, we're going to turn it back over to Phil to share his poem for the episode. Phil?
Okay, this is a poem I wrote back in 1988 for a poetry contest with the local newspaper, and I won. And the prize was movie tickets to one of the local movie theaters. So I got to take the boys to see movies for free. This poem is to grandmother's house. No over the river, no through the woods, only miles behind the wheel. My grandmother lives on Erie's South Shore in a city of concrete and steel, in a brownstone apartment on the city's west side, far from a peaceful farm, but it's still Grandma's home where I take my boys to share in her worth and charm. Christmas is really for grandmas and kids. It's for parents to worry where the presents are hid, to think about bills and how they will pay, and for all the planning that comes with the day. So I'm glad to have my grandma still here to keep making memories that I'll hold dear. When I take my sons to visit and stay, I'll be one of the kids to enjoy Christmas Day. Philip Burgio. He wrote that in 1988.
Wow.
Yeah, my grandmother up there in Cleveland. We used to drive up to Cleveland to see her.
Yeah, thank you. I really like that poem. Of course, being a kid back, and you said 1988, I think must have been 9 going on 10.
Yeah, you remember going up to visit her when she was in a nursing home, right?
I do. And I also remember the story of you telling us she wanted to have you bring her a beer.
I said, now, what do you want? She goes, bring me some beer. So I'd bring my grandmother beer when I go visit her.
But there are definitely fond childhood memories there. This was featured in the local paper. And like Phil mentioned earlier, he got tickets to the local movie theater for a year. So we got to go, small movie theater, but as a kid, we didn't care. We got to go see a bunch of movies for the year. It was a lot of fun.
Wonderful. What I liked a lot about it was the description. You really brought together a whole description of the scene, and also I think of the landscape, and from your perspective, what your life was like.
Yeah, I agree. And I like that twist on the Christmas, going to grandma's house and everybody thinking like the cozy, cabin or farm. And I like that, how it's different, that it's the city of concrete and steel. So I always like that, how you can still find the magic of Christmas in that. All right, from there, we're going to move on to our guest section of the episode. Again, we'd like to welcome back to You're the Poet, A. Benedict. So, A. Benedict, you're the poet. Show us what you've got.
Thank you. First poem I'm going to read is something I'm working on. It's a draft, if you will. And I don't have an exact title for it. Not that I'm feeling void of holiday spirit, just another holiday poem. I know, you'd rather not even hear it. Not hating the holidays, but feeling for them barely glows, like remnants in the fireplace filled with post-Christmas burning coals. Not hating the fireplace, or the spruce fir regaled with lights, ornaments, and memories of past mirth, prayer, and grace. I haven't lost all holiday spirit. It has just darkened a bit, like a burned-out bulb on a string of lights darkening the Christmas tree into night. I lost some of my holiday spirit when my mom passed one December day. Her love was greater than any present, wrapped tightly in bows of love, attention, and affection, always finding a way to calm my anxieties, frustration, and depression. I lost some of my holiday spirit, hope, and faith years later, as flurries of disappointment mounted up like winter snow drifts piled higher than my expectations. I lost some of my holiday spirit, happiness, and trust when my love melted away like icicles do during the day before freezing again, like my heart in the dead and desolate night. For many, the holiday season is a tapestry woven with threads of warmth, comfort, and joy. I lost some of my holiday spirit, but try to hold hope it will return, like my favorite childhood Christmas morning toy. A. Benedict.
All right. Thank you for sharing. I think a lot of people, this time of year can relate to that. Christmas is quote unquote supposed to be glamorous. We think of all the glamour and the joy and the merriment. But for people that have experienced loss or people that are alone, that's not always the case. Now, I know one of the things you want to talk about, you mentioned in our discussions that you did some work with suicide prevention. And I want to know if you wanted to talk about that a little bit here.
Sure, I actually appreciate the chance to talk about it. It is such a serious issue. While the holidays can be such a festive time of year, many people are struggling. They find it difficult for a whole host of different reasons. People are planning holiday gatherings, parties, and engaging in acts of conviviality. Individuals are also alone. They're grieving loss. They might be facing financial issues, not to mention the mental health issues of possibly anxiety, depression. There's about 300 or so chronicle diagnoses of mental illness. And there's a lot of comorbidity when people have several of them. So people are suffering. People are suffering, and the holidays can tend to, amplify those feelings. I would say that as far as the loneliness part goes and the isolation, the Surgeon General about 2 years ago actually issued a warning. He said that isolation and aloneness is a national epidemic, and that so many people suffer from that, and they keep those feelings inside.
And so what can people do for help? Are there resources out there for people?
There are resources. I would start with saying if you or a loved one feel suicidal and you need someone to talk to, the National 988 telephone, chat, and text Lifeline is a phenomenal service. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's a free service. All you have to do is dial 988. It's the old suicide prevention hotline. They rebranded it into 988. And you can also text 988 to reach them. And you can go on 988lifeline.org if you want to chat with them. So that's one resource. Obviously, if someone is in a real dire situation, please call 911 and get them taken care of immediately.
Right.
But in addition to that, there are a lot of people that are not at that level of feeling suicidal, but just need to talk. At the organization I work at, we always say talking helps. That's part of our catchphrase is talking helps. We're here to listen. And there are places that will listen. So you may not be suicidal, but you need to talk to someone. There are what they call many warm lines throughout the country, which are just for that purpose, just to have a voice to talk to and a set of ears to listen to you. So those are two resources that people can reach out to. And not to mention if your particular county you live in has a lot of social service resources.
All right. Well, hey, is there anything else you wanted to say about that, or do you want to move on? Or
No, the only other thing I would say is please, if you're feeling alone, definitely reach out to talk to somebody. Definitely reach out to get help because everybody's entitled to some happiness. This time of year can be really difficult. So keep those people in your thoughts as well.
Okay. You got another poem for us?
I do.
Go for it.
This one is more of a bittersweet, kind of a sweet poem dealing with winter. It's called Winter Evanescence. Alone in a cafe staring out the window, wasting winter's day away, reminiscing that special evening, the night before my leaving. Snowflakes drifted between us with the cold wind blowing and your hair flowing. I'll never forget how your eyes were glowing that night when you took my hand and led me across the plaza. Time stopped, but we weren't in a snow globe cliche. There was no mistletoe above, nor winter wonderland below. Just you and I, hand in hand, as I gaze out the window from a cold cafe and see transient visions of you, memories alone, wasting winter's day away. Winter Evanescence. A. Benedict.
all right, thank you for sharing. I like the imagery there. I could totally picture the scene as you were reading that. I think one of the things that struck me is I know you're reminiscing on a happy moment or looking back on a happy moment. But that line about the snowflakes between us just kind of gave me that sense of separation and the space between two people.
Absolutely. I'm glad you picked that up.
Mm. Now, that was good. For some reason, I imagined being in New York City. It probably wasn't, but that's what I imagined.
It was actually.
Oh, okay.
It was.
See, it came through.
Yeah, it was a great moment. Great moment. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Nice.
And I have one more.
Go for it.
We're going to end on a humorous note.
I was going to say, before we get to that last poem, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've had going on in the poetry world? I know I've seen a lot of your stuff on Facebook. I believe you recently had a public reading, right?
I did. I did. Thank you, Matt. I've been doing a lot of writing. I have. I've really been working on my craft as best as I can. It's always improvement. I have a long way to go. I have the whole rest of my life to go to improve. We all do. But I've been really taking a real look at the kind of work that I've been putting together, and I've been enjoying it tremendously. So I've been doing a lot more readings. I was a featured reader at an event in Trenton, New Jersey, recently. I did a whole set, about 15, 20 minutes of work. And what I really like is connecting with the poetry community where I live, and also with you guys here online, the poetry community online as well. That's probably one of my favorite parts of all of this. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of writing, and if anybody wants to see any of my stuff on YouTube, you just go to youtube.com/at a Benedict. So it's youtube.com/at a Benedict.
Yeah, we'll definitely check that out. I like keeping up on our guests. Part of what we're trying to do here not only is share poetry with people and allow them to share their poetry, but I want to build that sense of community. So I love seeing what our guests are doing. I try to keep up with you guys and see what is going on in your, poetry world, especially online. And so I definitely see that you're very active out there, and it's really been neat to follow you and, see what you're up to. Keep going and keep working and keep writing.
And thanks to you two gentlemen for doing all of this. I've talked to some people who have listened to the podcast and even been guests, and we think it's fantastic. We really do. You guys are doing a great job on this, so thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I wrote a poem specifically for you from our conversation about the Montreal, the Flyers, and Blue Jackets.
Oh, okay.
Is that something you want to share now?
I could.
Share it.
It's kind of silly.
Talk about the history of that, though, Phil. You and I were having a hockey conversation.
Right. We were having a conversation about the Blue Jackets and why they had a cannon on their jersey. If you're familiar with pro hockey, teams have a third, they call it the third jersey. And the cannon was because the founder of the team was a big Civil War buff. So that's why they have the cannon. And if you're familiar with the Blue Jackets, they have a full-size cannon that they shoot off every time the Jackets score a goal. And it's really neat to be there when it goes off, because if you're not expecting it.
Goodness me.
Yeah. On YouTube, they show a couple of the national sportscasters not familiar with it and their reaction to it going off. So that's why the Blue Jackets have a cannon. Okay, I don't have a title for this, but here we go. Oh, it does have a title. It's called A New Game. A New Game. Who were those guys who thought it was neat to put sharp swords attached to their feet and glide across a frozen pool to chase a flat ball with their only tool, a thin bent club but called a stick, moving so skillful and oh so quick, with 5 other boys skating around, they needed a purpose and end to be found. A perfect name for that intended role, they would put the flat ball into a goal. A bit too easy, they needed a plan and padded up their biggest man. They told him to stand in front of the net and catch or deflect the pucks that he met. A great name to call it a puck. Now with a netminder, score was with luck. They made up more rules as the years passed by and called the game hockey. Just don't ask me why. Philip Burgio.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, that's great. Works. Totally works. Works well.
Yeah, why do they call it hockey? I know like they have field hockey and this is ice hockey, but where did hockey come from?
Don't know. I'd have to look that one up.
That's right. That's what research is all about. You got another poem for us?
Yes, I do. It's called Happy Traveling. 737 jet plane streaking into a pale blue late autumn sky, soaring above trees, buildings, birds, and clouds, gracefully, precisely, and regally. Inside the plane's cabin, anything but. Snoring, kicking, whining, and yelling, slobbering, sneezing, choking, and coughing, sounding more like a saddening tuberculosis ward for the dying. One would think The flight destination was a trip to a garbage dump or a root canal visit to the dentist. Happy traveling. Steel boxcart down the aisle rolling, nearly severing appendages, stewardesses doling out tepid coffee and sawdust cookies. My ears playing Pop Goes the Weasel as the pressure builds from the altitude climbing. The stratosphere is seemingly only an arm's length away. Settling down with Johnny Walker, drinking as I look at my watch. 5 more hours until we reach the garbage dump, flying in Dante's cylindrical metal level of hell. Happy traveling. Am I nervous about flying? Nobody would care even if they knew, as the large man beside me and I are engaging in an enraging boundary war over the armrest. Drifting off to slumber, dreaming of a white, sandy beach destination. But I quickly awaken in much consternation as the child screams in my ear. My nerves shot, with this flight unraveling. 4 more hours to go. Happy traveling. A. Benedict.
That's great. I could totally imagine that because I've been on flights like that.
Ugh.
Me too. I've done a lot of flying in the last year or two with my wife. We've gone to a lot of destinations, and we're on the budget flights.
Yeah.
And so you get a lot of interesting people and a lot of interesting characters, and makes for an interesting travel.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I found a lot of joy in that poem.
Yeah, we're getting ready to watch a movie, and the pilot comes and says, "Oh, we're having trouble loading this movie, so we're not going to have one for the 6-hour flight."
I just don't understand those flights to places like, God, New Zealand, Australia, from where we live here.
My goodness, right.
Those 19-hour flights to like India and places. Wow, couldn't do it.
6-hour flight to Belgium that's the longest I want to do.
Yeah.
And I promised myself next time I fly, I'm going first class because I'm kind of wide in the bottom there, and the seats are a bit tight.
Yeah, I've done the flight to Hawaii twice now, 2 different times, and that's a long one.
Oh, yeah.
At least this day and age, we got movies on our phones and stuff, so I guess that's a way to, watch a couple movies, take a nap, and hopefully we're there.
It's part of the holiday season to travel.
I really enjoyed that poem. I mean, really enjoyed that poem.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, from there, we're going to move on a little bit and wrap up the episode. As we wrap things up, we want to let our listeners know we're grateful that you've taken the time to tune in. We hope you're enjoying the poetry shared here, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with others. Now that the Year of the Poet community is expanding at a rapid rate, we have set up a patron site for those who would like to show their support for Year of the Poet. You can find us on buymeacoffee.com/yearofthepoet. Thank you for your support as we continue to grow. If you've written any poetry and you want to share it here, whether you just have an interest in poetry, consider yourself an amateur poet, or are a professional poet with published works, contact us to be a guest on a future episode. Please check out the website at www.you'rethepoet.com. There's a section there that answers questions about being a guest. Follow us on Facebook for updates and info, and send us an email to host@you'rethepoet.com for feedback or questions about the podcast and how to be our next guest. We've also recently been working to put our episodes up on YouTube, so please check out the YouTube channel at YouTube. I believe it's under You're the Poet Podcast. You can find some of the episodes there as we work to put those up. Until next time, Phil, thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
And A. Benedict, it's definitely been a pleasure to have you back. Thanks again for being our guest.
Thank you both. Great to be here.
We continue to look forward to watching you and seeing what you do in the poet world, and who knows, maybe we'll have you back on again in the future.
Look forward to it. Thanks, guys. Happy holidays to you.
Same to you.
Same to you. Thank you, guys. Goodbye.